Okay, so today we will start with the last slide of the previous class, which was contract document, that what all things should be there in the agreement documents. So for this, particularly for architectural construction projects, I have taken this handout where it has been given all the clause which are also found in any architecture and construction management books. Any books on building construction and project management or architectural construction management book, these contract clauses are all given. There are approximately 56 clauses, 56 points. Out of those, it is not necessarily that all the point has to be there in all kind of contract. Okay, depending on the agreement, you can define as many as required to be clear on your part in explaining or not only explaining explicitly or clearly all the descriptions, information, as well as clearing out any unambiguous chances of mistakes that might happen at a later phase. So clarifying everything. So contract was actually the agreement which was enforceable by law. So in this contract documency, in the same line, when this book defines the part which is highlighted in green, for a contract to be legally valid, it is required to be affixed with appropriate value of stamp. It means stamp paper. And it must be signed by the owner and the contractor, in between whom the contract is being signed, in the presence of two witnesses. One of the witness is the architect or his representative. Okay, and the other witness can be any person who happens to be present at that moment of signing of the contract. In most cases, architects make use of the standard form of contract. So on the right hand side, you can see on the top, the second column, IIA, form of contract. Remember, this is Indian Institute of Architects form of contract. It is not 2A form of contract. It is IIA form of contract. So coming back to the underlined definition on the screen, can somebody confirm that whether can you see my screen where
Yes,
there
sir.
are it is
Yes,
green
Yes, yes,
highlighting and all?
yes, sir.
yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
It is.
Anyone who cannot see my screen? Okay, so it is visible to everyone. Okay. So here the other witness can be a person who happens to be present at that moment. In most cases, architects make use of the standard form of contract issued by the Indian Institute of Architects. Most of the cases. So we will discuss that one rather than discussing any business contract. Okay. Coming down, see in this green first bracket, the contract document provides for all matters such as respective duties and responsibilities of the client, the architect, the contractor, manner of making payments to contractor, granting extension of time. So mark these terms, extension of time. Next is effective insurances, that at which insurances cover which aspects, the building material, the fire, the life of workers, which aspects are covered by which insurances. Next is levy of liquidated damage. So this is something which we have to read. Levy means wasulna, to procure. After a previous promise is made, when required, you are supposed to procure that damage rectification amount of money. Next is manner of termination of contract. So in this contract document, there should be a place where the contract can be terminated in in which cases will be mentioned, and in what manner it has to be terminated, that also has to be mentioned. And since it is an agreement, there might be chances of disputes. So what should be the method of resolving the dispute should be mentioned in the contract document. So even though an oral contract is admissible in law, it is not advisable in a building projects, because I am sure all of you have seen lot of projects where mere oral contract or oral agreement or verbal agreement is not helpful in solving a problem at a later phase. So better always go for a written contract. Okay. So on the right hand side, right hand column, this is the IIA form of contract where the Indian Institute of Architects prescribed a model form of article of agreement and condition of contract, which most architects use particularly either for item rate tender or for any lump sum tender or even for percentage. That means cost plus percentage tender. Okay. So whenever in your building bylaws and all, you have always seen that whenever something is being passed in an official gazette, first of all, you have to clearly mention the basic definitions of the objects, which words or which objects you are going to use in this particular form or the act. So here you have to first clearly explain that who are the first party, the second party, who are going to be the legal representative. You have to define them, or in absence of any one person, who else has the responsibility. So all those definitions that in this particular form of contract, who a contractor is or who a owner is, or what is who will be known as an architect. Okay, all these things will be mentioned. The definition of the site which has been procured, definition with in terms of its geographical definition, its relative definition with respect to the neighboring plot. Like once I give a site in your design project, the site is defined by its not only its geometric coordinate but its definition, like its periphery, perimeter, area, its location with respect to its neighboring building, adjoining piece of land. Okay, everything has to be mentioned in the definition section. So let's go to the next page. Okay. So if you have this Foxy reader or Acrobat reader where you can underline necessary terminologies, okay, particularly Foxy readers and all, you can open it and keep on underlining it, or in your handout or in a small exercise book, you just keep underlining the sections, the definitions or the clauses which are particularly critical and needs to be understood. Now this doesn't mean that these are important and only these has to be there. I'm again clarifying before starting that all these 56, 55, 56 clauses are the complete basket of the different clauses that can be put in a contract for architectural projects. But you may opt to only keep the things that is important to clarify all the aspects. So it is always better to get a comprehensive list of the clauses which are required to make the contract or make the agreement as comprehensive and as proof of any loopholes, or you have to avoid all kind of perspective loopholes from this particular contract. So first is the contract document. So here we will only highlight those which are not only important but it requires explanation. Like only writing the term contract document doesn't clear what all things has to be there in this document. So here this clause says that the contract documents include article of agreement. So article of agreement is a format that under what circumstances which parties are agreeing to the following contract and all, and the conditions of contract. That means this contract is being signed under certain condition. The contract is being signed under certain noted specific conditions only. Provided both the parties fulfill those conditions, then only this contract remains void. Then only the contract remains valid. Okay, but along with this contract or along with this what to say, along with this agreement, written legal agreement, you can also add the appendix, which is some additional information including the specifications of the product maybe and the bill of quantities. That means the estimated quantity along with its specification can be added. Okay. Now here you can see that in a building construction agreement, we are supposed to have given the drawings or the plans beforehand during the tender invitation itself. because without that the tenders or the quotations will not be supplied or will not be provided. So during the contract document, it may be again attached, or you may avoid to attach the drawing, the production drawing or the tender drawing. But as and when required, you have to make a promise that in individual stages, good for construction drawing, commonly known as a working drawing, along with a shop drawing. Shop drawing means the drawing of the material or the sample, all sample of material fitting which are procured from the shops. Any drawings for those can be submitted again along with the contract document. Okay. Okay. Now see, the contract document is compulsory here. If you can see my mouse, the contract document is complementary. It's not compulsory, it is complementary. In other words, it means when what is stated in one clause is to be taken as included in another also. The main stamped copy of the contract will be in the custody of the architect, and signed copies will be given to the parties. The parties can refer the original contract document as and when necessary. So here the architect on behalf of the client is helping in the signing of the agreement between the contractor and the client. Now client doesn't supervise the work of the contractor. So architect supervises, hence the original copy is generally kept by the architect if not the client. But he also gives copies with original signature. Like copies means photocopy of the same along with or multiple other copies of the same along with original signature and stamps or signed copies we call to the contractors and the client for their record only. And at any point of time there is any modification in the copies of the contract, the original contract document can be referred. Along with that, what happens is this paragraph, the last paragraph, two sets of all drawings will be given to the contractor free of cost. This is particularly important. When we prepare working drawing, we generally have two more copies of the original drawing. Those two copies are given to the contractor. Now why two copies? Because one copy will be kept at the site office with or for the record of the contractor, and the other will be issued to the workers or the supervisors from time to time. Okay, and any changes that is being instructed at the site, which is a modification of the contract only, if the contract document keeps the scope of that, those has to be added in the document that is being used at a site, and later it can be cited as an agenda or as an additional agenda in the contract document that originally the copy which was kept in the site office was given something, and the modification which was instructed in written by the architect or by the client is there in the third copy. Okay. Is this particular aspect clear? What all thing has to be there in the contract document, drawings, copies of the drawings and all?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So whoever first says yes, sir, can you tell me that why does the architect keeps the original copy of the design or the drawing in his own office and gives only the copies of that to the contractor?
Because in case of any like problem in future, they can refer to the original copy because the printed one can be like modified one or.
No, it's not printed. What happens is, suppose I prepare a design and a working drawing of that. I make two copies of that and give it to the contractor. But the original one I always keep at my office.
If there is some problem or some confirmation.
Sir, in case the contractor changes the design or something, we need some solid proof that
Whenever the
stating that it's
contractor
not our design.
changes, the contractor has to return those drawing back to the client or the drawing issuing authority. This is done because if see, we don't have this chapter in your syllabus now, it was there in the previous syllabus. There is something known as architectural copyright of design. So any design that an architect or an architectural office produce, they have a copyright on their design. So if the contractor is given the original, he can use that particular design to give architectural solution to some other clients also, which he doesn't have the rights. It will happen sometimes. You go to a AutoCAD plotting shop to get a plot, and he sees that, okay, I have a good design, let me keep a copy of that. And he will start practicing like an architect without a architectural registration and all. So that is a punishable offense, because every architect or every architectural firm has an inbuilt architectural copyright on their work of art, because their design is their work of art. So according to the Copyright Act 1957, all this 1857 ka Copyright Act ke mutabik, the architect has a copyright on their production, on their design. Hence they always keep the original copy of their production or their design. Okay. Monica, Abhishek, Padmesh, who always speaking?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is written in the last line of this particular paragraph. This is important for protection of architectural copyright of the architect. Okay. This you might read in your professional practice in your 9th semester, but it's a situation where I just mention the term, the architectural copyright. Okay. Next clause, in the next clause of the contract, you should mention the nature of the contract, whether it is an item rate contract or whether it is a lump sum contract, or what kind of contract it is. For example, say if I ask some of you to prepare certain contract for any construction project or any other project at a particular place, this particular clause should be mentioned, that whether it is a price based contract or a cost based contract. If it is a price based contract, whether it is a lump sum, whether it is an item rate, whether it is a labor contract, whether it is a material contract, whether it is a transport contract, which kind of contract, that has to be clearly mentioned. And this can be in parity with the promise that you made during the tendering. During tendering, you have said what nature of contract you are hoping to sign. It can remain the same. Okay. Next is schedule of quantities. Now the quantities shown in the bill of quantities are generally the provisional. Okay. So that means the estimated quantity during the tendering process and all are generally, or the quantity is provisional. That means if given a contract, this much, what can I say, this much quantity of product has to be supplied at the site, or this many number of manpower has to be supplied at the site. But this quantity is a provisional to get an idea and to get a tender. Actually, if it is an item rate contract where the unit rate is only quoted, the quantity can keep on changing during the progress of work. As well as you may not require the total quantity or the total bill of quantity or the total quantity of material and manpower at the same time. So you can schedule those quantities, schedule the arrival of the quantities also. Okay. So this schedule of quantities is something like where you are actually saying that the total quantities provided in the bill during this particular signing of contract, when you are going to procure those, or whether at all you are going to procure all those or not. Okay. So for example, what we can do is we can sign a tender where we give excessive interest, we express our excessive interest in lot of highly qualified materials and all, which I know only selected tenderers or bidders can provide. And some of them are well known to me. And then some unwanted person whom I don't have a rapport with, or with whom I am not acquainted, are rejected. Now out of those selected list, one of the person whom I wanted has been chosen. Now I can say, okay, tender to ho gaya hai. It was not that legal. In the tender, there was this BOQ, bill of quantity mentioned. But right now, what I feel is, in this contract, I will not make the windows with whatever I promised. I will sign a different contract for the material for the windows. Just keep the window opening and the door opening or something empty. So you can drop some of the BOQs also while signing this contract. In this particular section where the schedule of the quantities, that quantity and its schedule of arrival or procurement has to be mentioned. Okay. Next is clause 5 on the right hand side, the contract drawings. So in this particular thing, your rough architectural design is of no good. Now here drawings with proper specification, indication of dimensions, its datum, its position with respect to a datum line. So for example, say your building is located in your site, on your site, but exactly where within your site is your building is located. That means when you start drafting the first column or excavating the soil for constructing the first column, where in your whole site do you construct that? So all these positioning systems are to be mentioned in the drawing. Now this drawing is not just a graphical drawing. It includes all other necessary informations in form of reports and specifications indicating the qualities, the method and order of carrying out of the work. That means the hierarchy of execution of work. Everything gets into this contract drawing section. So drawing is not the graphical drawing, not the design, not only the working drawing, but all other necessary documents and information that helps in the understanding of the drawing or quantification of the drawing. Is it clear to everyone what is meant by a contract drawing?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next sections, these are all trivial sections, the contract sum. So in the article of agreement, an amount of sum, the contract value, the value of the contract has to be mentioned. Contract bills are there. Scope and intent of the contract is mentioned, that what all things are coming under the particular scope of this particular contract and why are you intending to sign this contract. It is a general character of work only to indicate the general character of the work, that which kind of contract it is and whether it is a cost based or BOT or a price based contract, or and as well as it covers which aspect of the total construction. These are mentioned in here. Get to the next page, which is the architect's instruction. This is an important thing. Okay. Now, depending on different kinds of contract or different scale of project, the architect's instruction, like in the contract document, in the agreement document only, it will be mentioned that what is the role of an architect or in what format an architect will instruct whom. So contractor shall comply with architect's verbal or written instruction issued during the progress of work. Now remember, it is always safer to give written instruction so that there is a record of it. So any instruction during the progress of a work given by the architect has to be complied by the contractor. Okay. Now the contractor shall confirm in writing or oral. So put a slash in between. It went off during scanning. Instructions within a week. So suppose it may be like the architect has given a verbal instruction कि अरे ये balcony rectangular था, इसको थोड़ा semi-circular बना देते हैं और थोड़ा floral design बना देते हैं. So immediately what the contractor will do is he will prepare the necessary modifications in the third drawing or in the second copy of the original drawing and accordingly do the necessary changes in the contract documents and take a report of that, copy of that. That means amendment to a particular section of this contract upon architect's instruction is being changed on this particular date and it will be sent to the architect for his approval within a week. Within that particular week only the architect has to clarify whether whatever the contractor has understood from his verbal instruction or written instruction, like written instructions are not always as clear as what are for the contractor to understand. Okay, you might be using certain terms. So the contractor will come up with the modification which he has understood, and you as an architect are supposed to clarify or interpret it if it was not correctly interpreted. And then he will issue a notice. The architect shall, here it is written, architect shall give a notice to the contractor if his instructions are not carried out. So after 7 days, if the architect doesn't get a confirmation that the contractor has understood the architect's instruction and has not come up with a confirmation, then architect will remind him that I have given you an instruction, it has not been communicated back to me as a confirmation or not. Okay. So depending on the scale of the project, this 7 days is flexible. But it is the duty of the architect that within 7 days you should remind the contractor about any changes or not. And here here also the architect instructs the contractor about issue of the certificate of payment, when and where the contractor is being paid by the client, and architect has to issue a certificate. That means on behalf of the client, in lieu of the particular section of a work done by the contractor, this much amount of payment is being released to the contractor. This comes in a certificate. This particular thing comes as a certificate, commonly known as a certificate of payment. Okay. In common terminologies, we call it an invoice. Okay, so these are so this provision that architect can instruct and on what things he can instruct and how his instruction during the progress of the work has to be accommodated by the contractor should be mentioned in the contract agreement or the contract document. Okay. Coming to clause 13. Samples and shop drawing. This is something like which we just discussed a while back, that any material or any fittings for which you need a sample of shall be provided or submitted by the contractor within 60 days of the work order. So for example, say today the contract is being signed and from tomorrow and work order is issued for the contractor that you start working. So from tomorrow to a maximum of 60 days, the contractor will bring in sample material from the stores and get it vetted by me. So what I will say, okay, this is a sample, and it passes that necessary test at the site or in the laboratory. So if these materials are used, it is good for construction. Okay. So that is not important, but sometimes these terminologies you may hear at your site that shop drawing has to be provided. So what a shop drawing is. So for example, say in your design, you have given 6 reinforcement in a column, 4 in the 4 corner and 2 in between the rectangular length of 18 dia. So in your working drawing, you have given it to be 18 dia, 6 number 18 dia. Okay, that's or 6 tor at the rate 18 dia. That is what you mentioned. But when the contractor goes to the shops in your locality, he doesn't find this. So what he does is he brings in shop drawing where they have shown that it is available in 20 mm dia tor and 16 mm dia in tor. So now upon seeing this shop drawing, you ask the structural engineer to modify the design, the structural drawing, and give the architect's instruction on the second and the third copy that wherever that same column will be executed, change the 6 number of reinforcement from 6 number of reinforcement to 4 number of 20 tor in the 4 corner and 2 number of 16 tor in the middle. So can you find the link of the workflow? What is the necessity of the shop drawing? Whatever you design in your design studio, not everything is available in shop. And if you go for the fabrication of the special kind, it will increase the cost. So what actually is available in the shop, that you need to be furnished by the contractor. Say sample of cement, sample for the testing of the cement that needs to be done, you have to go for the sample of the cement, sample of sand, sample of stone chips, minimum diameter test and all. I don't know, have you done this kind of test in your building construction 4th semester, building construction 3? Has anyone done these experiments of testing of different building materials?
No, sir. No, sir.
No, sir. So in your leisure time, please talk to your juniors and ask them that before actually starting work at site, there are a lot of tests which has to be done. I'm sure you have studied a few, but if you learn those, you will again understand the example of shop drawing. What is available from shops? Okay. Next is, I will not discuss this in detail right now, which is clause 14. It is a progress chart. Contractor shall prepare progress charts, which is a bar chart or any network chart showing completion dates of different items of work. I'm not discussing it right now, but this is mentioned in the contract document that how to assess the progress of an work, in which format, horizontal chart, vertical chart, angular chart, logarithmic chart, any format, whether it is a chart, whether it is a graph, whether it is a network, like a flow chart, that has to be mentioned that individual contract is for an individual project. So for that particular project, what kind of project progress chart, what kind of progress chart is maintained, that has to be mentioned. Okay. Next, clause 16, another important section. Architect's status and decisions. Okay. There are 8 status, and so all of them has to be considered. That makes the position of the architect clear in the contract while execution of the work also. So architect shall be owner's representative during construction period. These terms are mentioned. Has got nothing to explain though, but just reading it out so that you remember the points. Next, the architect shall provide periodical supervision. So when the architect cites his quotation, that means his service charge or consultancy fee, he also includes this periodical supervision fee, the visiting fees and all. So he shall provide. So what the architect has to do, or in a contract, what is the status of an architect? We are clarifying those. Third one is he shall not be held responsible for contractor's failure to carry out work properly. So the client will not say that if a contractor has deliberately done some mistake, then the architect will be held liable for the contractor's failure. No, architect clarifies his situation beforehand. He shall keep the owner informed about the progress of the work, which is architect's duty. Next is he shall issue notice for stopping defective work and get it rectified from the contractor or by the contractor himself. So during the site supervision, in person or through some other person, if the architect finds that there is a defective work going on, he shall get it rectified by the contractor as early or as immediately as possible. He will not wait for the total contract to get over and then rectify it. He has been given the status or power to do so. Next, he shall give prompt decision on all matters relating to execution of the work. So while execution of the work, he is supposed to take prompt action. That means on spot, he can give his decision. That scope is kept open. It will not take too much time to go through all tendering process again and contract process again to do small modifications during execution of the work. If at the site he says that tomorrow there is a rain forecast, so today work the whole night and go for the concrete casting so that 8 hours it gives, initial setting time is over, and then next day if it is raining, curing will happen slowly, no problem. So those decision are prompt decision and it matters a lot for the execution of the work. So they have to be heard by the contractor as well as the client. Next, he shall interpret his drawing and specification wherever required. So this is another aspect of the architect's status or decision, that there might be cases where the architect's drawing or description or the contract drawing, whatever we call the description of different parts or phases of the drawing, or the architect's instructions are not clear to the contractor or the workers. So as and when required, the architect will interpret his drawing or specification. A very common example is something like, You in your office design or draft in millimeter or MKS units. So if required at your site, you have to interpret the drawing in FPS unit. Foot. So all dimensions from millimeter or meter are getting converted to feet and inches. So that conversion, if required, or similar other any explanation, further explanation which is not understood clearly, has to be interpreted by the architect. And last is, he shall issue further instructions related to drawing, variations, discrepancies, removals, re-execution, dismissal of offending workers, opening for inspection of work already executed. So all these things, like he shall issue drawings that should be clear. He should also clarify the variations in the drawing. He should issue instruction if he finds any discrepancies in the execution of work, or discrepancy in terms of removal and re-execution of a work. He will ask that particular thing to be removed and re-executed. For example, he comes and see that the scaffolding is not made of metal pipes. Instead, they have used bamboo, and it is going to take a excess load, and you have to do construction even before removing the scaffolding of a structure. So he will immediately come and say, okay, remove all the scaffolding, get rid of this wooden one, bring in the one which was promised in the drawing, and re-execute the scaffolding, do the casting later. Then again, if he feels that there are some workers in the team working who are offending, if you have seen this movie Khatta Meetha, okay, there is a
Yes.
comedy movie. So this Rajpal Jadhav, a offending worker. Okay. So those kind of people has to be removed immediately from the work, and an architect has the power to do so only if he clarifies it beforehand during sign of this contract document. While signing this contract document only, he has to state what all things might happen in the course of construction. Keeping that in mind, he should write the contract document right now. Okay. So with experience only, this contract document becomes clearer and clearer. Other than that, he has the power to reject any bad material if he feels like. Next is assignment and subletting. If at all he needs, he can allow the extension of time as well as postponement of work. So these are certain scope of work which might be required during the course of the work. Now, if these conditions that architect has the power to work on this particular aspect is not promised in the contract itself, then architect cannot come up with this kind of decisions during the course of work. Or even if he comes up with these decisions or change of decisions, he will not be heard of. Okay. So this is architect's status and decision as per as IIS form of contract. Next one, it is a brief explanation here, which is a performance bond. We have cited this performance bond earlier while starting with the tender document, that contractor shall deposit a security deposit. So performance bond is a kind of security deposit only within 10 days of signing of contract. Okay. In big scale project, it can be even 30 days from the date of signing of contract. The purpose of this performance bond is to indemnify the owner. Indemnify means keeping the owner informed. Okay. It is something like, I am indemnifying you about an LIC. That means I am telling that if you pay premium on time, this LIC procedure or the terms and conditions of the LIC protects you or your family in case any mishap happens. So that is an indemnifying the owner, and he indemnifies against the loss due to defective work or abandonment of work. So here the contractor who is submitting this performance bond during or after signing of this contract promises or guarantees his performance. So if you remember that during signing of a contract, there was one more security deposit, which was what? During signing of not signing of tender, during submission of tender. While a tender was submitted, another amount of money was given as a security to find out only interested bidders or interested tenders.
Earnest money, sir.
Earnest
Earnest
money,
money.
yes, earnest money. So what is happening is after these tenders are selected, you have returned the earnest money of everyone other than the first two bidders, the lowest and the second lowest bidder. Now you are signing a contract. So what you can do is either you can keep the earnest money with you and again ask for a performance bond, or you in this particular contract you write that the earnest money that was deposited by you will be from the date of signing of the contract will be converted into a performance bond, and you return the earnest money of the second bidder after that, the second lowest bidder with whom you are not signing a contract. So as I have said that in many cases you do not earn for earnest money, particularly in limited tender where you know that you are asking for the tender from only interested bidder whom you know. So there is no requirement of earnest money because you have first asked them whether they are eager or not, and then only you have sent them the tender invitation notice. So now there is no earnest money. So now you have to look for this performance bond, because during course of work, if he terminates the contract and he goes off, on that particular day, you may not be able to get the same work done with a fresh contract at the same price. So as a penalty, you keep this performance bond. This assures that the contractor will perform. So he keeps the money mortgaged with you as an assurance that he will perform. Or he also says that during course of work, during the working process, when the work is in order and anything defective is found and he is not able to clear that or rectify that defect on that particular day because of anything, maybe for example say let me give you an example. Say he was constructing the skeleton frame structure of RCC column beam slabs and all, and when he goes to the upper floor, he started making the masonry wall in the lower floor. But while doing the masonry wall, he found that there is lot of efflorescence or salt depositions and all on the concrete or on the brick masonry surface, which because of the excessive moistures and all, or else there is a problem which has arisen, like while the electrical worker was working, he has cut through the wall, which has now to be rectified. But the brick masonry wala, the person who was going to rectify, are not present right now. And if they are brought right now, another contract has to be signed, which is a time taking thing. So from this performance bond itself, amount of money can be utilized by the owner under the instruction of the architect to rectify those defect of the work. Okay. Now for this performance bond, what we can also do is, let me see if I have it here. See, I have given you this particular handout, another. Can you all see this technical terms relating to tenders? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Now it is visible.
Yes, sir. Audible.
I'm audible and now it
Yes.
is visible. I have changed the file actually. It is the second handout where a lot of miscellaneous definitions required for tendering as well as contract. Like I have segregated the two chapters of tender and contract, but generally they come together because it is a continuous process. So here all the miscellaneous terms are defined in an alphabetical order. Okay. So certain things for which I don't have a specialized definition, you can directly take it from here. For example, say here, I've highlighted a section known as performance bond. This is an upfront payment. That means it is paid before it is utilized. to be made by the contractor to the owner to assure him that he will successfully complete the work or he will perform within specified time as per agreement condition. Normally they give a bank guarantee or any other such instrument. Instrument doesn't mean equipment, but any other guarantees. Guarantees in legal terminologies are known as instrument. For example, say he has a small property and the legal ownership document of that property. So what he says is, until and unless I execute my work, you keep my like the land paper and all or house paper and all with you. So once I am done with this particular thing, you have to return it back to me. Okay. So it will be discharged on completion of work. Now see, performance bond is returned when the work is completed. Remember this, that when the work gets completed, it is not that the contractor's liability is over, but on the date of completion, like when the completion certificate is being given, the tenure of this performance bond has to be returned, because this performance bond will be now utilized by the contractor in some other project as another performance bond, but the liability remains for 1 more year even after the construction is over. So there is something else which we will come up with, but for the timing, remember that this performance bond is generally paid after or during the signing of the contract, and it is kept with the owner or the architect till the completion of the work, and it may be about 5% of the contract or the 5% of the total estimated project cost. Right?
So this is the earnest money which will which contractor pays ahead before the
No. See, when you are talking about the earnest money, call it a tenderer. They have not been given a contract yet, so they are not a contractor yet. So when they were paying a earnest money, first of all, they were tenderers. They were bidders. Now, when you are signing a contract with one of those bidder, he becomes a contractor with whom you are signing a contract. First clarify that. First let me know if you, that this is clear or not. See, did you find out that where it went wrong in your part? Be very careful in using these terms. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So now, once you are signing a contract and during the during the opening of the bid or during the tendering process, an amount of money was already paid as an estimated as a earnest money deposit. So with the person with whom you are signing the contract, his earnest money may be converted into a performance bond. It may be converted. Or what you can say is, suppose his earnest money deposit was 10%, but 10% was too much to show his earnestness for bidding. You only need 5% of the performance bond. So what you say is, okay, there are two options during signing of the contract. I will give you back the earnest money because you are signing a contract with me, and then you again pay me 5% as the performance bond. Or you say, okay, out of the 10% of the estimated cost, 5% I am returning you back as a return of earnest money. Rest 5% I am converting into performance bond on your behalf. Because you know something, पैसा एक बार तुम्हारे जेब में चले जाते हैं तो you can decide on that money. But जब तक तुम्हारे जेब में नहीं गया है, it is very difficult for you to take a decision. सिर्फ बोलने से I will not do the payment, कितना भी बोलो तुम. So once the owner has a money, he has a higher priority to choose what to do with that money. So he can convert it into performance bond or any other necessary security deposit because he had the money. Now contractor के है डर के मारे he will not say anything. But once the earnest money is returned back to the lowest bidder and a contract is being signed with that bidder, then the contractor, this particular lowest bidder, might say नहीं 10% तो वो मतलब 15 दिन के लिए था, मैंने इतना सारे पैसे 15 दिन के लिए during the tendering process only I deposited, but वो मेरा काम की है, I and your work will take 2 years time, तो मैं इतना पैसा क्यों 2 साल के लिए आपके पास रख दूंगा, थोड़ा कम रखिए. That can happen. So the performance amount, performance bond के amount becomes a bit lesser. Okay, or something you can keep the performance bond in form of something which you are not encashing. For example, say घर की दलील, जमीन की दलील. You have heard of this, right?
Yes, sir.
Those people, those who are good in watching the movies of this Ravi Teja and all, which is remade in Hindi, in Vikram Rathore. So there you see that गांव वालों के जमीन, they keep, the zamindars, they used to keep the document. In lieu of the document for the property, they used to give them loan of money. So those papers can also be kept as a performance bond because it is a paper. It can be encashed, but until and unless it is encashed, it is just a paper of high value. For that, you don't have to take a loan from a bank against that and give it as a performance bond. You being the contractor, you can just keep that stamp paper with the owner for the time being as a performance bond. In today's day, this has become even more clearer. We don't even ask for this performance bond. What we expect from him is the bidders with whom you are signing the contract will now give a tax statement of the last, say, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, which clarifies that he has a good amount of money in transaction, so he pays good amount of tax and he is not a defaulter of tax. So that assurance clarifies that if any problem happens, we will get back and cause problem for his taxation, and then he will face problem in his later works. So that assurance also becomes a performance bond. So it is not always cash or money or currency, but that can be any form of instrument. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So in the next class, we will start with clause 18, which is a clerk of work. It is a bit critical. Nothing is understood by the definition, but if you remember that I have pronounced this term as clerk of work sometimes before in previous classes. Can anyone remember what is meant by a clerk of work? जिसको याद है तुरंत बोलो.
Whoever is looking after the work for the owner.
The contractor will try to increase the profit, I guess.
No.
Something like
Clerk of work. See, why I said it is interesting because Shamim is correct, because clerk of work is actually a person. He is a clerk of work. He is a person who is appointed by the owner but approved by the architect. He looks after the day-to-day activity or the work that gets executed and reports it back. Okay, so we'll discuss it when is the next class? On Friday. Okay, so beforehand, at least get a look at this particular handout, just a glimpse, at least the headings of individual clauses. Okay, and in the meantime, if you get a soft copy of this available on internet, you can download that also.
yes, sir.
Okay,